Good morning, everyone. Today is the third day of Tammuz, Gimel Tammuz, July 9th. We're going to learn Tanya. Obviously, today is a very special and auspicious day. Gimel Tammuz, 30 years. And let's learn some Tanya. Everyone, please try to take upon themselves to do an extra mitzvah today. Give the Rebbe Nachas. Give a little extra tzedakah. Obviously, stroll. Reach out to someone who needs to be reached out to. Say some extra Tehillim. Learn a little extra Torah. We're on page 72 in the Chayenu, and we're in the middle of chapter 9. Now we're in the gray box. So first, in today's lesson, it is only as the infinite contracts and clothes itself within particular channels that we can attribute any definition, even the highest form, to it. So by the Eibishter putting himself out there, I'm creating this, I'm creating, oh, you're a creator? Now we can say you're a creator. But otherwise, we have no way of giving a definition to Hashem. In essence, Hashem is beyond definition. Without getting too mystical, we have to accept Hashem's oneness. And that's okay, because we are Ma'aminim b'nei Ma'aminim. We believe that Hashem Echad, and that's it. The Alter Rebbe now explains the various tzimtzumim that had to take place in order to enable the attribute of Atzilus to emanate from the infinite Ein Sof light. So this is in parentheses here. Soy that tzimtzum ba'oid Ein Sof Baruch Hu. This now will outline the mystical principle of the tzimtzum of the Ein Sof light. Before tzimtzumim, God's infinite manifestation was predominant. Tzimtzum caused his capacity for limitation. Otherwise, it was just godliness. The tzimtzum Adam Kadmon, and also the tzimtzum of Adam Kadmon, which is the highest state of existence after the tzimtzum. And the primal thought that contains and is the source of all the subsequent emanations and creations, beside Hadikna and the esoteric doctrine of the tzimtzum of Dikna, which is the life force that animates. No, it's not the life force. Here's the new part. The life force that animates hair is exceedingly attenuated. I wish Michael was here. Right, but what's attenuated? And attenuated. So it dies out.
Yeah, all the time.
To the point that cutting it causes no pain. That makes sense. Thank you, Doc. Accordingly, the terms dikna, literally beard, and sa'arai's hair are used to represent a certain form of tzimtzum. Note by the Rebbe on the bottom. This is explained more extensively in many places in Chassidus. For example, in Shara Yichud, in their mitzvah v'teira of the Mittel Rebbe. Shesoid kol tzimtzum litzamseim ha'or she'islabish v'chinas kelim diyut sfiris. The underlying purpose of all of the contractions is to condense the light in order to enable it to become enclosed within the vessels of the 10 spheres of the world of Atzilus. These vessels, these kelim, assume the specific form of wisdom or kindness. By contrast, the divine light, godliness, that permeates these vessels is essentially simple. When through tzimtzum the vessels come into being and the light flows itself within them and becomes fused with them, the wisdom and kindness become one with God. If you're having a hard time understanding, don't worry, that's okay. Me too. I think it says here in the introduction, it says, Tanya speaks of the oneness of Hashem, not just one God, but a God that is infinite and unique. One God. A little hard for us to understand all these different nuances here, but we're going to plow ahead with the Inyan keeping the Inyan in mind of Hashem Echad. That's what this is all about. It's only after the Ein Sof light, the eternal light, becomes clothed within the vessels of Chachma Bin Adas, stands for Chabad, the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that the Rambam says about Hashem. He is the knower, he is the knowledge, and he is the known. And by knowing himself, he knows everything. He doesn't have to think about us, he just has to know himself, which means he's thinking about us, because he always knows himself. Lefisha bechinas kelim datzilus nasa neshama v'chayus lebri yitzir asiyah v'chol asher b'hem. For the vessels of Atzilus become the soul and life force of the worlds of Bria, Yitzir and Asiyah, and all the creatures within. So by knowing himself, so to speak, with the knowledge that's to be found in the Kalim of Atzilus, he also knows all the worlds and creatures of Bria, since they derive their life force from these vessels. Hashem knows himself in the highest world, everything is included in that. All this, however, can only come about after the various contractions have brought about the contraction of light, enabling it to become vested in the vessels of Atzilus. And imagine Atzilus is Eitzel next to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In order to even make a vessel in Atzilus, there had to be tremendous contractions. I got about all the way down here. We're not even getting to that yet. Avo belitzim tzum v'alabasha haniskele'el lo shayach leimar klal leimar oidevo amada. Without any contraction at all, it is not appropriate to say, you wouldn't be able to say God's the knower and the knowledge. There would be no such thing as knower, knowledge, the known. That's all out the window. Only through the tzimtzumim we could try to give a description and try to have a conversation about it. So the whole category of knowledge cannot be ascribed to Hashem, even in so exalted a manner as in the statement that he's the knower. Why? For Hashem, the essence of God, is not within the realm and domain of knowing and knowledge at all, chas v'shalom. But infinitely elevated above even the level and bounds of wisdom. We say, we are in God's wisdom. He thinks about us and we come into being. But then the very fact that we could say, the very fact that we ascribe God to have wisdom, even if it's the most exalted and highest wisdom, it automatically limits. So God's well above all that. For even the statement that Hashem is the knower implies restricting God, so to speak, to one particular faculty, wisdom, as, let's say, distinct from the attribute of kindness or mercy. God transcends all bounds. God's above wisdom. To the extent that in relation to Hashem, the level of wisdom is considered like the level of physical action, like we said yesterday. Okay, so that's the end of the note. So before the note, the Alter Rebbe said that the manner and nature of the flow and emanation, how and what, is known to the savants, the mevinim, meaning it is they who understand how from the Ein Sof there emanates the intellectual and emotive attributes, which after their emanation are so completely fused with Hashem that it could be said that He's the knowledge. So Alter Rebbe goes on to say, "V'hinei ein lanu esek b'nistores." Now we're not concerned with esoteric matters, how all these things happen and why all these happen and how the emanations of the spheres from Ein Sof came about and the subsequent manner of the unity with Hashem. That's not our concern necessarily, certainly not on a day-to-day. Why are we learning it? Oh, we'll see. The main point and the purpose is for us to remember and to have complete faith and to believe that Hashem and His attributes are all one, meaning the vessels, the spheres, the chachma, the knowledge, the knower, the wisdom, the kindness, all these things, really it all boils down to one thing, Hashem Echad. Which means the attributes of Hashem, His will, His wisdom, His understanding, His knowledge, are one with His essence and being. Hashem alone is exalted by infinite elevations above the levels of wisdom and intellect and comprehension. L'chein gam yichudai shemiyachid im midaiso she'etzil mi'ito yisparich gam kein eina bechinas chasaga. And since he totally transcends intellect and comprehension, his union with the attributes which emanate from himself is also beyond the realm of comprehension. And it's impossible to understand how he unites with them. Rather, this may be apprehended only through faith. We trust and believe that this is true, but we really can't wrap our heads around it in any way. In the Zohar, therefore, the attributes of Hashem are called the secrets of faith. This faith transcends intellect, for this concept cannot be grasped intellectually, but only through faith. So what's the purpose here? The bottom line is that we need to believe that Hashem and all the different levels of Hashem, the kindness and the mercy and the ability to create the world, are all one. His knowledge is not in addition to him. Attributes might have a definition, but in some mystical way, really, they are all one, and we are all one with Hashem. So just to back up all the way to step one, the Rebbe, it's known, the Rebbe talked about this. I think he said it said it to his Chassidim. I can look it up. That from the time he was a young boy, like 5 years old, he already started to envision how the world, and in fact, not just the earth that we know, the human experience, but also the universe would be when Mashiach comes. How it would look, how it would feel, how it would sound. And so all the Rebbe's life, he dedicated himself and to encourage others to make the world ready for Mashiach. And when we look today, and today is obviously the 30th yard site, but we look in the Tanya, it talks about Hashem as one. All the things that go on, whether they're good things that you enjoy or whether they're painful things that we experience in this physical world. Everything is Hashem. That's what we learned today in Tanya. And we learned the Parsha. It's talking about preparing ourselves and becoming pure in the beginning of the Parsha, but also destroying our enemies to be able to go into Eretz Yisrael. So everything focuses on that one goal. And a lot of times there's white noise, there's distractions, there's a lot of different things that come our way. But we have to remember, and as I mentioned in the beginning, we should do what we can to make the Rebbe proud. We should try to help another Jew today, especially. And it's not good enough to just know it ourselves. We have to spread that word, and that's the only way. You can think, what's the big deal? Who am I? But if everyone says that, it's never going to happen. And if we all do our part, your one word, your one kind word to somebody else, could have a ripple effect, and they in turn will pass it on to someone else. And that way, that's how the Rebbe started, with a few chassidim sitting around the table in a small room, maybe the size, a little bit bigger than the other room there, but much smaller than the room we're sitting in now. And it grew to what it is today, and that's not the end goal. The end goal is for the entire world to recognize godliness and to greet Mashiach. May it be b'mheira b'yameinu. Amen. I want to have a special day. Please be inspired and please inspire others.